Hey, and welcome back for another little Max for Life tutorial. Today we're gonna discuss the topic of RingMod sidechain modulation. We're gonna have a look at the process behind it, and we're gonna implement that in one of our Max patches. So what is ring modulation sidechain actually good for? To show you this, I prepared a little Ableton Live project. Here I have prepared two separate tracks, one with a little bass line and one with a drum group. Let's have a look at the bass line first. As you can see, it clips right at 0 dB. Now let's switch over to the drum track. The drum channel also is clipping at 0 dB. Now we're gonna play both of these tracks together. The obvious thing happened, the master channel just overshot it by around about 6 dB. The most common way to reduce these kind of peaks would be some kind of sidechain compression. So now we're gonna have a look at the bass channel. There we have a compressor with sidechain enabled, and our drum track is routed in there. We have a very short attack time and a quite low threshold. But as you can see, there's still some kind of overshoot happening there, because the compressor is not able to catch all the peaks of the drum hits because of that attack time over there. Now we're gonna enable our RingMod Sidechain device. Same thing, the drum track is routed in there. Now we're gonna hover over here and reset our peak meters. As you can see now, the master channel isn't overshooting anymore. And this is because of how RingMod sidechain modulation works. It takes the exact amplitude of the drum channel here and subtract this off of the bass channel. So if they are summed together, it isn't possible for them to reach a value above 0 dB. Now let's switch over to Max again and have a look at the signal processing part behind it. As always, we start with a plugin object, which routes the audio from Ableton into our device, and the counterpart of it, the plug out object, for the audio output. Since we're working with a sidechain device, we need to declare another audio input. For that, we type in 1, 2, 3, 4 into our plugin object. Because Ableton is working with stereo pairs as input sources, 3 and 4 is basically our first sidechain input. Let's label that and put that there. Drag down the plug out object a little bit. And now the first thing we have to do is we have to take the absolute value of our sidechain input. For that, we're going to use the abs object. To showcase what that is actually doing, we create a little cycle object up here. Cycle is basically just a sine wave generator, and the 1 is the frequency value, so just 1 Hertz, so we can observe that pretty well. Now we connect a scope object to there, and another one directly to the cycle object. And as you can see now, all the negative parts of the sine wave, so the values from 0 to -1, are converted to positive values. So it's kind of folded up. We're gonna create a little label here for a little bit better overview. And now we can basically delete our live scope objects here. We keep the cycle object for later because that will come in handy in a little moment. And now we're creating a multiplier object. The multiplication part is basically the ring modulation that is going on. And this is between the direct input and the absolute value of our sidechain signal. To showcase that, we connect the cycle object as our direct input and use a little kick sample from over here and connect that as our sidechain input. And now we create live scope objects again. One we connect here. And for a little bit better observation, one at the direct input. And maybe also a third one. And let's connect that to our kick input. What's happening here is basically that the amplitude value of the kick is multiplied by our input value. So every time we have a positive input value, our RingMod sidechain signal also is positive, and when we have a negative value, it is negative. This is making sure that the sidechain signal has the same polarity as our input signal. And now we create a minus operator and connect it to our input signal and subtract our sidechain signal from that. And this we can connect to our plugout object. So this is basically all the math behind RingMod sidechain modulation. Let's take another label, subtract the sidechain signal from the original. And this one is just the ring modulation part of it. Since we just did that for 1/2 of our plugin, we need to copy that for the other stereo channel. Make the right connections here and there, connect it to the plugout object. And I think now we should just make it a little bit more nice to watch. Drag that over here and this one over here. Scale the plugout object, route the patch cords. Much better. Now there's something we could also add to this, because I think it would be cool to have some kind of depth knob which scales the subtraction part of the RingMod sidechain stuff. Therefore, we copy the multiplicator objects and connect them in between these two objects. Let's create a live dial object for that. I just use the amount prototype in this case and connect the left outlet, oh, it's the right outlet actually, with the multiplicators. And I think I should set, first rename it. And I think I should set an initial value of 100, so basically the full range. So this is basically the whole signal processing part of the device, but there's still something missing because we need to declare our sidechain input inside of Ableton Live. And this is kind of easy since Live 12, because since then we have the live.routing object. And if we have a look at the help file of this one, a little buggy, and have a look at the second tab, there's already a nearly ready to use signal routing patch we can use. So we just copy all of that, close the help file, and delete this one and paste it into our patch. There's just one thing we have to change over here. We're gonna delete the load mess object and use a live.thisDevice object instead. This one basically sends an initialization message every time the device is loaded inside of Ableton Live. And it's a little bit more handy than the load mess object. So now we create a message box and type in port audio inputs, because we want to use audio inputs and not MIDI inputs or something like that. And then we need to declare an index, because we want to use input 3 and 4 and not 1 and 2. We type in index 1 because the numeration starts at 0. Let's label that also. So I guess you get the logic behind it. In most cases in a coding environment, we always start counting with 0. And we always have stereo pairs. So index 0 would be input 1 and 2. And index 1 is input 3 and 4. And so on and so forth, of course. And now this is basically our finished patch. We just have to delete these two objects. And now this one is ready to use. Now you can just add the objects of your choice to your user interface and build it as you like, maybe add a little scope or something like that. I should mention that the routing algorithm we used here just works for Ableton Live 12. So if you're on Live 11 or Live 10, you have to do it in a little bit more complicated way. Or you can have a look at the RingMod Sidechain device in my Gumroad shop, which is backwards compatible for older versions, and just copy and paste it from there, just as we did here in the example with the help file. Mentioning my Gumroad shop, you can find a lot of other devices I made over there, and if you like them or the tutorials I do, you could support my work with a little donation if you like. If you want to download the patch we made in this tutorial or from my other tutorials, there's my Patreon link down below where you can find the full patches for download and of course become a supporter there. And you also have the chance to get one-on-one lessons and feedback for your own devices if that's something you would be into. And of course, if you don't want to miss out on further tutorials or plugins I release in near future, you should follow on my socials, YouTube, Instagram, etc., etc. And until then, I see you in the next tutorial, I guess.